Okay, let's take that discussion forward on the Congress Manifesto this evening with our panel. And joining in on the show, Swaminathan Iyer, a consulting editor at ET Now. From the BJP, we've got National Spokesperson Gopal Krishna Agarwal. From the Congress Party, Sanjay Jha joins in, and so does N.R. Bhanumurthy. He's a professor at the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. Gentlemen, good evening, and thank you so much for taking the time out. Swami, opening comments from you. What is your take on the Congress's manifesto? Has the Congress managed to pick the right talking points that you think will resonate with voters?
Well, first of all, the political context. The chances of the Congress forming the next government, in my view, are pretty low. I think the highest probability is another Narendra Modi coalition. Second, I would say, is the third front government. And I would say Congress-led government probably third. In these circumstances, it is necessary for the Congress to make some very big gestures, some very big promises. Nobody expects manifestos to be taken very, very seriously. Everybody understands that these are ways of grabbing attention rather than actually delivering. If you look at the history of manifestos and the history of deliverance, whether by Congress party or anybody else, it is quite limited. So this is an attention-grabbing attempt. Okay. Having said it, nothing wrong with it. Every party does the same. How far does this go? There's a promise after promise after promise which involves a lot of spending. There is NYAY, 72,000 rupees for the bottom 50 million families, which we've already discussed. Over and above that, you're going to double spending on education. You're going to double spending on health. You're going to have a loan waiver for everybody else. I'm only mentioning a few things. Then the question is, and all this is supposed to be combined by reducing the fiscal deficit to 3%. This, I'm afraid, is voodoo economics. You cannot, on the one hand, spend more and more and then suddenly find that the fiscal deficit is shrinking.
Okay.
So all I can say is there are several good ideas in it.
Yes.
I would thoroughly back ideas like abolishing the Sedition Act, amending AFSP, abolishing APMC Act. There are many good suggestions in it also. The overall thing is a grabbing attention, grabbing manifesto, promising various things that cannot be financed.
All right. So Swami's laid the context for us. But Sanjay Jha, since you have our attention, let's talk about each one of those promises being made, today. First, let's talk about NYAY, a cash transfer of 72,000 rupees a year for 20% of the country's poor. We just heard Mr. Chidambaram making it very clear that, look, existing subsidies will not be touched to roll out this initiative. The cost is being pegged at about 3.6 lakh crore. Swami says it's seeming a little bit like voodoo economics. Will you tell us how, one, you're going to raise resources for it? The other part that really stands out is that you're intending to implement this as a joint scheme of the centre and the state governments. Now, look at what's happening in today's scenario. Whether it's Ayushman Bharat or the Prime Minister's Kisan Yojana, states are really unwilling to play ball. So, can you really be banking on that sort of a model?
Well, Taneia, let me just quickly answer. But before that, I need to tell you that Mr. Iyer needs to be told that the only voodoo economics that India has seen recently is demonetization. And, I think it's a little snobbish, elitist view of a lot of people who are, kind of cosmopolitan columnists to run down anything that is done for the poor of our country. I've seen the same comments when Manrega was launched. I know many journalists, who love their Sunday brunch at five-star hotels, who found Manrega to be poverty-ridden economics, who found right to education was a waste of government money. And I think this is, basically tells you how divorced people are from ground realities. Now, you heard Mr. Chidambaram. I don't need to add further weight to that. But I can tell you this in brief. When he talked about rationalizing expenditure, when he mentioned that there are leakages that can be curtailed, number of subsidies can be fine-tuned further. There is a scope for actually making our tax system more equitable and efficient. In fact, there is a scope to, now not touch the middle class at all, and yet, find a way to make sure that your incomes are not affected. the GDP growth itself can be a big source of funding of NYAY. Frankly speaking, why don't we ever ask this question? That why are we neglecting education and health? You know, there is a lot of criticism when we double education and health, but if you don't, they will come and tell you, you have no interest in education and health, and that is the foundation of any democratic society's success.
Sanjay,
so I think there is a lot of hypocrisy here.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to so I want to keep my answer brief by telling you that NYAY is already caught the public imagination. With due respects to Mr. Iyer, he's going to get some very surprise results on May 23rd if he thinks that the Congress is the third option. Good luck to him. But the fact of the matter is that it is already a talking point. People in the villages have suffered under Narendra Modi. I don't have to repeat the rural distress, the alarming proportions to which it has reached.
Sure.
The demographic dividend story has been destroyed by the Narendra Modi government, where at a 45-year high unemployment crisis, and we have to find a way out.
Okay.
And if you look at the fine print of this manifesto, and I've seen many manifestos of my party in the past, this is some really well constructed thoughts.
Okay,
there.
Gopal Agarwal. Yes, Gopal Agarwal. Let's come to you. You know, your party has been quick to dismiss NYAY. You even called it a conspiracy against the poor, and how it's really unviable because of the unavailability of resources. Is the BJP underestimating this minimum income guarantee initiative somewhere? Because, you know, at the end of the day, voters ask, what's in it for me? In this particular case, there's a clear-cut answer. The Congress is saying 72,000 rupees per year.
Then, Taneia, I would like to ask, why only 72,000? Why not more? Why not less? The issue is that Congress has announced a scheme. They themselves were changing the goalposts on the day 2. First they told 12,000. Then Rahul Gandhi, Surjewala ji said it is 6,000. Then Mr. Rajan, their economic advisor, said that if there is no fiscal space, we will not implement. Then there is Mr. Chidambaram is saying that as our economy grows, we will find the resources, and as the economy grows, there will be less number of people who are eligible to come under the poor category. So less resources are there. These are such hypothetical roadmap in itself. That is the question. Nobody is saying that they should not help the poor. They should help, but give us a roadmap. Don't make a fool of the people. And I think we as a party are very clear that this whole manifesto is just turning the clock back to 1960. Some leftist ideology or communist ideology is telling them that just pro-poor slogans will help. They did it in 1951 through Nehruji, then Indira Gandhi, then Rahul Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, and now Rahul Gandhi. These kind of sloganeering at present are not helping anybody. We don't say if they want to try to fool people, citizens of the country, they may very well go, but we will educate them. Okay. Second thing is, even on education and health, spend of 9% of the GDP.
Can we please talk about education and health, please? Gopal, I will come back on education and health, please. I just wanted opening comments on NYAY. Let me just, also bring in Professor Bhanumurthy. Professor, do you believe that this is an idea that might be, sort of long on intent, but short on specifics? Is there enough in the manifesto from the Congress party today, despite maybe, the initial ambiguity, that has you convinced that this is a scheme that will not cost more than 1% of GDP in the first year and more than 2% of GDP in the second? Will it be fiscally prudent, you think? Because, the Congress has also promised to bring fiscal deficit down to 3% by FY21. So is it doable given all of that?
So I think keeping the politics aside, now that India has been a signatory of the Sustainable Development Goals, one of the important goal under the Sustainable Development is to eradicate poverty by 2030. I would like to say that the polity of this nation has actually neglected for the past 3-4 years. Irrespective of the government that is going to come up in the May, they need to really focus on achieving this important goal of eradicating poverty. I think if you agree to that kind of a goal, My view is that the numbers that have been thrown up by the Congress, I think they assume that the poverty line right now is the people below poverty line is around 20%, and that's how the estimation has been brought forward. So I'm not going to say that they are going to spend all the, they are going to start spending all the money in the first year itself, but any government that comes up, that they need to really focus on eradicating poverty. I think we already delayed. I think it's high time that any political party that's going to come, they should focus on. Now the point is about the fiscal deficit. Now unfortunately in this country, the kind of fiscal deficit roadmap that we are following, I've been telling that this is a very flawed kind of a FRBM roadmap that we are following. Right now we just don't bother about the revenue deficit. We are still following only about the fiscal deficit of 3%. Now even that we have not able to achieve, as somebody pointed out early. We are always shifting the goal post in terms of achieving the fiscal deficit. So given that kind of situation, I think focusing on achieving 3% in the immediate future is a futile exercise. And I would also like to say, now if you are really going to come out with these anti-poverty programs, you need to really relook at the existing programs. Now the Congress may not be saying that it is going to be implemented by the center as well as states. Ultimately, I think there is a need for an agency that comes in to coordinate between the center and state, see that how to prioritize the anti-poverty program, see how can you substitute the current existing anti-poverty programs which are not been implemented well. I would like to say that even the new government need to really relook at the National Food Security Act itself. We don't know what is happening in terms of its implementation. So given all those things, my view is that the cash transfer or the minimum income scheme is definitely a better idea, and it's not a new thing. Even the previous chief economic advisor already pointed out in his economic survey. I think India needs to really relook at how we are implementing the anti-poverty programs. In that sense, I think shifting to cash transfer is a much better than transferring food and wheat, rice and wheat, which I think you are forcing the people to eat rice and wheat, although if they don't need it.
Okay.
So in a sense, overall, we need to really relook at anti-poverty programs.
Okay. Okay, with that, I'm going to take my first very quick break here on the show, but do stay tuned, because when we come back, we're going to talk about the promises being made to alleviate the farm stress. Welcome back. You're watching the India Development Debate, and we're of course discussing the Congress's manifesto today. For that, let me take it across then to Swaminathan Iyer. Swami, the Congress has also proposed a separate budget for farmers. If farmers default on loans, it will be considered a civil offence and not a criminal one. They've also promised to extend a farm loan waiver to all states. So clearly there's a lot to try and, alleviate the farmer stress. Of course, this may not be a long-term remedy, but is it a good way to look at things?
It's a very bad way of looking at things. The way to relieve farm stress is to make people more productive. In the first instance, you need to move people out of agriculture to non-agricultural things through rapid growth in industry and services. The idea that, you can get prosperity when the average farm is only 1 or 2 acres is ridiculous. You cannot have prosperity with such tiny holdings. You need to get people out of that. So I said the main solution is not by looking at agriculture, but by looking at the other sectors and getting people to move out into those sectors. For this, you do need infrastructure. Every village has to have electricity, telecom, a pakka road, a good school, a good health center. You create all these things, and then the whole economy will take off. You certainly need to have reliable electricity round the clock. I mean, for a successful agriculture, you now need a cold chain. A cold chain cannot be done if you supply electricity for 6 hours or even 18 hours. It has to be 24 hours. So if you get all these facilities, you will have an overall growth of the rural economy, and a lot of that economy will be non-agricultural and provide the sustenance for the rural areas. Secondly, of the existing small plots, you need various forms of consolidation so that a large number of small farms can be put together. The Congress has suggested farmer-producer companies. It's a good idea. Let it be promoted. But as I said, we must have much larger sized farms for economies of scale. Finally, the loan waiver is a bad idea, flat. The loan waiver, because you're ruining credit discipline. In Punjab, I saw the agriculture NPAs are up by 37%. You are encouraging willful default. Loan waivers make an idiot of the honest man who has repaid his loan. It rewards the fellow who deliberately does not repay his loan. So you should not have loan waivers. It's much better to have a direct cash transfer. Equally, it is a wrong thing to have these ruinous, huge subsidies for electricity, which is encouraging over-pumping of water. Because of that, the water level keeps going down. All the shallower wells have dried up for drinking water. The shallower tube wells are drying up. You have to stop having this huge subsidy for urea, because there is a lopsided use of fertilizers. Everybody wants to use more and more urea because it's subsidized, lesser phosphatic and potassic. And that's bad. So you need to replace all these subsidies by a cash transfer.
Okay.
You need to do it. And as in Odisha, it should not be done only for the farmer, also for the landless laborer, also for the tenant. So, I mean, I would say of all the cash transfer schemes I've seen, Odisha's Kanya, I think is the best of them.
Okay. Gopal Agarwal, the inability really to be able to both address and tackle farm stress, many would argue, cost your party in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, as well as Chhattisgarh. Will we see more out-of-the-box ideas, especially when it comes to agriculture, from the BJP in your manifesto?
Taneia, I'd like to tell you that our Prime Minister has promised that by 2022, we will double the farmers' income. And if you see the track record of last 5 years, everywhere there is a clear-cut target, whether it is Jan Dhan account, whether it is toilets, whether it is Ujjwala Yojana or electrification, road construction. We have come out with a specific target and achieved that. And therefore, when we are saying that by 2022 we will double the farmers' income, definitely we will have a roadmap and we will implement it, and that's our promise. Second thing I want to tell is that when the Congress is saying that they have such bright ideas, the Chidambaram ji, everybody, Rahul Gandhi ji, what stopped them to implement them? They had all the time for 60 years, they ruled this country. So why didn't they implement? Why the farmers are in distress now? Why the economy, if there are so many 20% population poor? We are working towards removal of poverty. You see, in 2011 it was 22% poverty, now it is 17%, and we are saying by 2020 we will reduce it to 15% poverty level. So there is a clear-cut roadmap, and that can come through economic development, economic growth, and only function, I think, Congress, the problem of major economic problem in the country was Congress leaders' corruption, and I think their only plea that the compulsory automatic bail is to save their leaders who still are being coming out on bail, and every case of corruption is opening up. So that's the only purpose. Otherwise, economy is doing good. And you see, we have created, Modi ji has created an ecosystem of 34 crore bank account, direct benefit transfer, which they are saying that we will use it. What stopped them to do it? Then second, they are also banking upon the economic growth model that we have put, that from this gold growth model resources will come, and then we will implement those schemes. So I think
Sanjay,
they want to implement.
Sanjay, I'm sure you want to respond to that. And Sanjay, I also want to talk about, the promise being made as far as jobs are concerned. Your manifesto has promised to fill about 4 lakh vacancies in the central government by March of 2020. First criticism is that that timeline is very ambitious. The second thing is the regulatory forbearance for MSMEs, which in turn you're hoping will sort of spur jobs. That's also going to come at a cost. So how are you going to bridge the gap?
Let me first answer what the BJP spokesperson said. I mean, I can't imagine how, one can be so brazen with the ridiculous jugglery of numbers. I mean, to double farm income, India needed to grow at 12 to 13% for the last 5 years. our agricultural growth rate is 2.9%. I mean, so when the spokesperson comes and speaks on a very popular, respected business channel that we will double it by 2022, he's talking about growing the agricultural sector at 16%. Yeah. I mean, this is such absurdity, so bizarre that I don't even know what to comment. It's rubbish. And I think one should be a little more serious when you come to a debate discussing a manifesto, etc. But anyway, forget that. The BJP, Agarwal, I did not interrupt you.
Yes,
Agarwal, I did not interrupt you. Please be civilized. Please be civilized. Let us not be acrimonious here. So, you know, to answer your point, Taneia, the fact of the matter is that today the agricultural sector is reeling under a very serious pressure. Now, I want to tell you this, a Kisan budget is not a symbolic step. You know, we want to bring 70% of India that is ignored and is usually treated as a fringe by a large section of India, that they are very critical to the lives that we benefit from. And, you know, I disagree with what Mr. Iyer said again. This is not, you know, I don't know whether he's read the manifesto at all. We have talked about remunerative pricing. We have talked about better and lower, you know, kind of lower input cost, higher access of institutional credit. These are very seminal issues that have affected farmers. We have talked about, you know, not having the APMC. We have talked about creating farmers markets. Yeah. I mean, for God's sake, read something in a totality before, you know, people start making these sweeping generalizations.
All right,
but
Sanjay,
to answer your question,
yes,
I think this will be a game changer because the farmers responded in the elections in Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. And I'm very happy if this arrogant party continues to live in denial. Good luck to them. I don't even care.
Okay.
But
Professor Bhanumurthy, I'm sorry, Sanjay.
Let me tell you one thing. The low-hanging fruit are the jobs that have not been filled by Narendra Modi's government. Ask this question. You know, I heard some BJP person say that we did not fill 22 lakh jobs because we were worried about the fiscal deficit. So you actually allowed India's young to remain unemployed, to actually, you know, possibly be pushed below the poverty line, but you wanted to save your fiscal deficit. Okay. I mean, what kind? That means they are basically admitting.
All right, Sanjay, I'm going to have to stop you there. I'm sorry. I'm going to go across now to Professor Bhanumurthy. Professor, a make for the world policy under which foreign and Indian companies can invest in exclusive export-only zones to manufacture and export is also sort of, you know, one of the promises where you pay no direct taxes and you have a low rate of corporate tax. I just want to understand from you, Professor, how is this going to be different from the Make in India that already exists?
Well, I think there is some kind of ambiguity in the overall Make in India program. The fact that we are not able to increase our exports in the past 2 years also shows that there may be some issues within the program. I think that's where the Congress manifesto is trying to say that, you know, what are the ways to improve the export, you know, volume, and is there something to do with the tax issues, or is there something to do with the regulatory issues? This needs to be really relooked at. I'm not really sure what exactly holding this overall exports. Having said that, exports should be one of the major engines of India if you want to really grow at 8%, 9%, and at the same time to provide a large number of job opportunities outside the government sector. So, the fact of the matter is there is almost stagnancy in the exports despite the Make in India, Startup India and all those things. We also have this special economic zones and many other policy measures, but unfortunately I think that's really not showing you know, positive results. So perhaps the tax may be one of the things, maybe we need to relook at it. And in fact, in the GST environment, that seems to have become a major issue. I think particularly the tax refunds and all those things, that may be holding the overall export sector. I think, I mean, we need to really have a relook at the whole issue totally.
Okay, all right. I have time for just closing comments, so I, you know, really urge all of you to keep it brief. Swami, to you first. Do you believe the Congress manifesto document that, you know, also reads Kaam, Dam and Shan is an attempt to try and shift the narrative back to development away from, you know, what the BJP has sort of been harping on its areas of strength, which is nationalism and communal politics.
Yes, well, you can't do it simply by putting these things into the manifesto. You have to do something more aggressive. I do not see the Congress as being particularly aggressive on the issue of secularism. It really is taking a soft Hindutva line. Even the manifesto, I would say, it has not been a hard secular line of the kind that I would have personally liked. On the other hand, as I said, there are several good things in it. If you are really going to abolish the Sedition Act, that's an excellent thing which is overdue. If you are going to change this Armed Forces Special Act to ensure that some atrocities are covered, that is an excellent thing. If you are going to abolish the Essential Commodities Act, except in emergencies, an excellent thing. So I said there are several good ideas in it. But these are not the things I think that are going to grab the attention in an election. The attention grabbers in the election are going to be big things like NYAY, loan waiver, filling all the government vacancies. I think the essential focus of the debate would be there. But I can see that the BJP is going to emphasize nationalism, is going to emphasize security. It has a right to do so. And the Congress will have to find some alternative instead of just saying that this doesn't work.
Sanjay, you had the Finance Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, today saying that the Congress manifesto is dangerous. It's attempting at the balkanization of the country. He's, of course, referring to, the promise to review the AFSPA and also scrap the sedition law. How do you respond to that?
Well, let me be very blunt with you. It's a stupid statement, and I'll tell you why. Arun Jaitley should be a little more responsible. Does he even know that the Bharatiya Janata Party, in the Jammu and Kashmir election, before that election, you know what they said? They said, we will actually repeal and abrogate AFSPA. This is what the BJP said. So if the Congress party says that we'll review it, just to balance human rights issues with internal security aspects, which I think is a very mature and a very pragmatic statement, that is being anti-national and is trying to divide the country. But Arun Jaitley, your party wanted to repeal AFSPA. I mean, are you even aware of this, sir? So the BJP is, Taneia, with due respects to you and to the viewers, is making a fool of itself. I mean, I can understand this obsession to try and raise the patriotism fervor. But the fact is, even on national security, the BJP has been an unmitigated disaster. Before Balakot, can Narendra Modi and Amit Shah tell the people of India, why did 45 of our CRPF jawans get killed? Who's responsible? Because the BJP is actually responsible because there is a precedence rule in Jammu and Kashmir. Rajnath Singh needs to explain to the people of India. So 45 of our soldiers died, that is perfectly fine. But we attacked Balakot, so now we have become the muscular, militaristic heroes to protect India's borders. We don't need certificates from the BJP on patriotism. The Congress party has been in government during the 1947, 1965 and 1971 wars against Pakistan, which were triumphant, and everybody knows the consequences that Pakistan faced. So I think this is a very pathetic, substandard argument. There are people who believe this nationalism will work. We believe the people of India are far more intelligent, far more discerning, and those who face the pain or the anguish of hunger and joblessness are probably the ones who will decide the fate of this country.
Okay, Gopal Agarwal, I'll give you 30 seconds to quickly please respond to that.
What I want to say, there were two important narrations before the country. One was a strong nationalism because of the country was suffering from terrorism, insurgency, Maoism, Naxalwad, etc. There was a strong sentiment to curb that, and Mr. Modi over the last 5 years has done good thing on this, and now Congress has lost that plot by coming out with amendment to the AFSA, then sedition law, and then again bail on the CRPC Act, all on the 3 and on the 4th on the Kashmir side also they are trying to move away before 1953 with the NC, with the collaboration with NC. So on the national security they have lost the plot. With regard to economic development also, India needs economic development, it needs inclusive growth, but that can come through only higher growth and better service delivery and proper roadmap and a clear-cut target, transparent in the implementation and resource allocation. All these factors are not being considered and given away in this manifesto. So on the both the count, whether on the economic roadmap or poverty alleviation, inclusive growth, etc., Congress has not come out with any new announcement or any new roadmap. It's old things they are talking about, rhetoric, and if they have new ideas, they should have implemented before.
Okay,
so
Gopal.
Both way,
yes.
They have lost the plot.
Gopal, I'm sorry. I just have one quick, question for Swami, and I want him to sort of close this debate for us. Swami, tell us, what will Battle 2019 be fought on? Will the BJP's pitch of a safer country under Prime Minister Narendra Modi sort of win, or will it be the Congress's pitch of wealth and welfare that's going to woo the voters?
No, it will be an entire spectrum of all these issues. It will not be any one of them, and it will play differently in North India and in South India, in the East and on the West. So it will be the broad spectrum, within which, I mean, I think BJP's main thing will be that Modi is better than Rahul Gandhi. I mean, this will be an important issue, the attempt to make it more a presidential thing. Over and above that, if you look at the actual track record on things like employment and growth, Mr. Modi had promised a lot and not delivered enough. I don't think he will talk very much there, and it could be appropriate for the Congress to hit out on that particular part. And therefore, Modi is now switching to nationalism, security. I don't think that will move the needle very much. But as I said, even if this Bala court increases the BJP vote by just 1 or 2%, I don't think it will do more than that. But 1 or 2% improvement in North India and UP, could that make the difference between success and defeat? I think it could. I think perhaps that might actually ensure that the BJP returns not with an absolute majority at all necessarily, but as the head of a coalition. I think the prospects are not bad.
With that, we'll close it on this edition of the India Development Debate. Swaminathan Iyer, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, Sanjay Jha and Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy, thank you so much for taking the time out. Do stay tuned. Up ahead, we'll be back with Top 10.